This is Al making a video for Ajax and Advantage. One of the more common questions we get is what makes badges dynamic? I think most players understand what makes stats dynamic. Let's just take fold versus flop c-bet. The number you see here, fold versus flop c-bet, level 1, is their fold frequency, heads up, in a single raise pot, on the flop, versus normal bet sizes. Min bets, over bets, that stuff's excluded. Level 2, which the HUD will automatically switch to when the sample size is large enough, same criteria, but only when that bet comes from another full stack reg. Then level 3, once again it will automatically switch when the sample is big enough, only when that c-bet comes from you, the hero. We also use dynamic sample sizes for our stats. Rather than use just all the hands from the last 3 months, this allows high frequency spots, for example, big blind fold versus button steal, to have much more recent information than, say, fold versus a 4-bet. Alright, enough about stats. Let's talk about what makes badges dynamic. We put a lot of work into our badge system. Even though I was deeply involved in the process, it wasn't until I played with the badges, really thought about them, that I began to realize how sick these dynamic badges are. First, our badges have 2 levels to them, exploitable and highly exploitable. If you use a single badge to represent exploitability, you're left with 2 pretty unappealing choices. Either the badge represents a range from marginally exploitable to highly exploitable, or you've got to tighten up the criteria for the badge and you end up missing out on players who are marginally or moderately exploitable. Our 2-level badge system was the perfect solution. It allowed for greater accuracy while really pushing the edges. Our versus steal and versus 3-bet badges have bet size exploitabilities built into them. Each badge will calculate the risk versus reward of each bet size based upon that opponent's fold frequency to each bet size. The badge will reveal which bet size gives us the best risk versus reward. Here we have versus small blind steal single bar. This indicates that a min small blind open will give us the best risk versus reward for the bottom of our ranges. Here we have versus 3-bet when opening the button single bar, indicating that a 3x 3-bet sizing gives us the best risk versus reward with the bottom of our range. Our badges, like our stats, also use the 3-level badge system. Level 1, reaction to lines using normalized bet sizing. Level 2, reaction to lines using normalized bet sizing, but only when the action is coming from a full stack reg. And then level 3, when their opponent is you. The HUD will use information from level 2 and level 3 when that sample size becomes large enough that is more reliable than the lower level. Now we're up to the cool stuff. This is the part of the package that took me a while to realize its value. Each badge contains a versus hero check. Once a badge appears, it's going to be checking that opponent's play versus you. Over a relatively small sample size, if their play versus you is non-exploitable, it will cancel out the badge. Now, the badge will continue checking their play versus you, and if their play returns to norms and they're exploitable versus you, the badge will reappear. That makes sense, right? It's fairly straightforward. Well, let me get deeper into this and show you the real benefit of the versus hero check. Now, I'm assuming you're not a GTO player. GTO player wouldn't be interested in this HUD and wouldn't be watching this video. I'm assuming that you play like me. You seek out your opponent's exploitabilities and you look to take advantage of them as much as possible. And that's a central premise, the theme of this HUD. It seeks to clearly identify the exact spots where our opponents are exploitable. Now, when playing a style that seeks to take advantage of our opponent's clear exploitabilities, and the more they're exploitable, the more we're taking advantage of them, we have to be concerned that we don't do it too much. And previous to this HUD, a lot of my thought process was how far can I push things before it starts changing my opponent's play? Because if my opponent's play changes versus me and I don't notice it, that now puts me in an exploitable position. Well, the versus hero check really helps with that issue. Let's take this button open versus 3-bet exploitability badge. Now, this player has a level 2 badge, highly exploitable, and this is a high frequency spot. So I'm going to be taking advantage of this high exploitability badge. With the versus hero check, it'll be checking this opponent's play versus me, and if this opponent's play starts to shift to a non-exploitable level versus me over a relatively short sample size, it will cancel out the badge. Now, the badge will continue checking their play versus me, and if their play starts coming back into their normal folding frequencies, then the badge will reappear. Imagine this. I'm coming after this guy with fairly weak and high frequency 3-bet bluffing ranges. This player starts to notice, starts changing what they're doing. After a relatively short period of time, this badge will cancel out. Now, since the badge system will drive my range selection to a fairly significant degree, my ranges will shift to a much higher value concentration. I may not even be aware that I've switched my play against this player. It's just driven by the badge system. And so what we get is this player defending extra wide against what he perceives to be a very bluff-heavy range, but in actuality, I've already switched to a value-heavy range. After some period of time, he gets tired of getting stacked and always seeing me have value hands and decides to switch back to his default, his normal style. Once that's gone on for, a relatively small sample, the badge will reappear, and then I'll shift my ranges back to the bluff-heavy range. Now, the versus hero check can also cause a badge to appear when a player is playing exploitably versus you, but not against regs in general, but that takes a much, much larger sample size because we want to be sure that the data versus you is reasonably accurate when the data versus other regs is saying something different. Lastly, our badges are interconnected. When you have a spot that has two possible lines, we connect those badges. If one line offers a significantly better profit than the alternative line, it will cancel out that second line. A common spot is the versus donk badge and the versus turn stab badge. Quite regularly, when it's high exploit, the versus turn stab badge will provide a much better profit than a donk would, and if that's the case, it will cancel out the donk badge. Guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know. Good luck out there, guys.